The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. It's a Sheringham. And Solskjaer has done it. Radisson saved it. United again. Rooney. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Imran.
And I'm Ashwin.
So we're here the day after transfer deadline day, which I think was a disappointing day for a lot of people. Yet again, we have actually ended up doing a fair bit of business right at the end of the window, which seems to be our way. We're going to delve into kind of, what's happened over the last month or so. It's even longer than that, actually. I think this is the longest summer transfer window ever, because it kind of started while we were still almost in European action and has gone all the way into the first few games of the season. We have bought in some players at the end, even though, a lot of people were worried that we weren't going to bring in anybody. But I think the big thing is that we missed out on who was clearly our number one target, Jadon Sancho. I know for sure that Jamie and Colm were absolutely certain we were bringing in this player for sure. And I think most of us probably thought we would do. Even, I thought we would eventually. But, in the end, as time went on, it looked less and less likely. We're going to go into the details of what we think might have happened, what's gone wrong there. For sure, we're going to have to talk about issues that we've been chatting about for a couple of years now, which all goes back to kind of our board, ownership structure, directors of football, because, as soon as you start talking about transfers, all of these things become important. I think as any regular listeners of the pod will know, is I think, so we're going to try and stick to the facts and talk about things that we are sure what has really happened. And I'm not really going to be going into rumours and nonsense that you read here and there. But look, let's start anyway with the players who have come in, because, there's some decent players who've come in. For sure, the squad is stronger than it was yesterday. But the question is it strong enough? And have we improved as much as we wanted? I mean, I think, I'm sure you'll both agree, right, that we had a great end to last season. We were all hoping a good window would allow us to push on. And I think the over kind of arcing feeling of it all is that Ole has not really been backed enough for us to be going forward, right? I mean, Imran, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I would say so. I think if you had asked Ole what he wanted from this transfer window the most, he would have probably said a right winger, and I think everything we've done in this window indicates that that's what he wanted the most, and he hasn't been given that. I mean, okay, we've got these two youngsters, but personally, I don't think you should be expecting anything from them this season, bare minimum. So I think I read a piece on Football 365, which basically put out the idea that if the board had faith in Ole and backed him, then they'd find a way to get Sancho for him, which it's hard to argue against. You could argue at the beginning of the window, the three positions. I think if you did a straw poll, you'd say we need a right winger, a centre back, and a centre defensive midfielder, and we've got none of that in.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I know we had a chat about this on one of the podcasts. Centre back definitely was up the list for me. I didn't think we were in desperate need of a central defensive midfielder. Just because I think Matic has still got another year in him, and then there is Fred, there is also McTominay. I did not expect us to be going for that position just yet, but for next season, Matic is definitely going to need to be replaced. Centre back though was right at the top of my list, and it doesn't seem to me that we really looked at this position.
No,
and I think that links to the fact that we've just got such a ridiculous amount of centre backs on our roster, and we needed to be getting rid of 2 or even 3 before bringing anyone in. I mean, Smalling has finally left. Yet again, it's on the last day of the window. Why, you would have think that is the easiest transfer to deal with. The guy's already been there. He wants to go. They want him, but we still managed to eke it out till the last hours of the window to get an agreement with Roma for him to leave. He has actually been our only permanent transfer out. I mean, obviously Dallo has left as well, Pereira as well. Does seem nowadays that Italy is the only place for our old players to go. Italian teams seem to love our Deadwood. But good luck to Dallo, good luck to Pereira. I hope they have a good season. But yeah, I don't expect to see either of them back in a United shirt, and I just hope they have a good season, and then we can get a decent fee for them. I mean, were you sad to see any of those players go, Ashwin?
No, I actually wish more players had gone. It's unfortunate Lingard is still here.
Yeah, the two haven't gone there. I think everybody, I just don't really know where they're going to go now. Romero and Rojo. I'm sure you all saw this there'd been a outcry from Romero's wife who thinks we're holding him hostage or something like that. But I think it does just paint a bad picture of some of the things that go on with our club. And we've heard things in the past from Patrice Evra, Rio Ferdinand, Ander Herrera, all about times when they were leaving the club and contract renewals, and just all saying that things were not really done in a professional way and things were not done in the way maybe other clubs do it. It seems yet again that maybe, Romero was hoping just to be given a free transfer so he had free reign to go where he wanted, but I think the club have held out for some sort of fee for him. We don't know how much, and he's ended up staying here now.
Can I just say quickly, my favourite headline that I saw this morning was Harry Redknapp slams Sergio Romero's wife.
Yeah, I did see that.
You can't beat that. I hope he give that soundbite out of a car window.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they always roll out good old Harry on the transfer deadline day. That's his specialist subject.
Well, I mean, just on Romero, it's interesting because someone told me he's on about 70 grand a week, which works out to about just under 4 million for a year. So if we don't sell him, then that's basically £4 million of nothing.
I mean, look, the winter window the next window does open. It's only like 2 months away to January for the next window.
What I don't understand though is I understand you obviously want to sell for. I don't have an issue with the club pushing it out in terms of sales anyway, of holding out for a fee to a certain point. But at a certain point, you have to be a little realistic, right? Like you're not. How old is Romero? 32, 33?
33.
You're not going to get a significant outlay for him. If your finances are so tight that you need to focus on kind of cutting the wage bill, and I think it's safe to say that whatever the specifics, they were operating on some sort of budget this summer, right? It's obvious that they were not they were not going to spend a ton of money here, and really you can say that for the last 2 summer windows they have not spent a significant amount when you look at the net expenditure. But if Romero has a taker, and you're not going to play him because you have De Gea, you have Henderson, so he's never going to play. You should just move him on. And if it's a smaller fee than what you asked for, I think they were holding out for something like 8 or 10 million pounds, and I believe they had been offered 4 or 6, something like that. I get that the club wants to kind of establish itself as being hardline operators in the market after kind of years of mismanagement by the same people who are now trying to fix this issue, which is funny in its own way. But you have to be realistic too, and I don't see the value of keeping him to January and then selling him then for a price you probably could have sold him for in August or September or whatever.
Well, the other rumour was that we don't want to sell him to Everton because they're a rival, in which case I would say if you're worried about selling Everton your backup keeper to be their backup keeper, then there's greater things to be worrying about in the world.
Yeah, and as well as Romero, there is Rojo as well, who seems to be stuck in a kind of similar limbo. He's still over there. It is worth bearing in mind, though, that not all the windows are closed yet. For example, Portugal have still got a couple of windows left, so there is options for these players to be going to Portugal. And of course, Rojo originally came from Portugal, so maybe there's some kind of possibility there. There is still also a domestic window open but it's only open between the Premier League and the Football League. This is the thing some people haven't understood. There can't be any Premier League to Premier League transfers, but players can still come in and out from the Championship. I don't really see either Romero or Rojo going to play in the Championship, to be honest, but there is still a possibility of players coming in from there.
But only for today, really, because they have to register for Champions League today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you bring in a player and he's not registered for the Champions League. But yeah, I do know what you mean. It's probable that we're not. I think, yeah, some people have talked about that the gossip still isn't going away, and people are talking about Sarr and Brooks who are still in the Championship and available. And I think there will be some moves will go on, but you're right, probably teams who are not in Europe who will maybe look to be doing some more business there, because there is still some good players actually in the Championship. There's that Ben Rama, or even Cantwell. There's some decent players there. But I think we're probably done now, right?
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
So let's have a look at the players who've come in. I'd say our biggest signing, maybe not in fee because he's a free transfer, but certainly in profile, is obviously Cavani. It's kind of slightly came out of nowhere. I mean, were we linked with any other strikers seriously? I mean, did you think striker was going to be a place that we were really going to be going for, Ashwin?
I did not think we were going to spend big on a striker, but I did think that, it's pretty obvious that Ole has wanted a specific profile of striker.
Yeah, he always said that smash his nose to get a goal striker or whatever.
Yeah, and if you just look at everything, so last summer after we sold Lukaku, there were rumors that we were looking at players like Haller, who went to West Ham, or Mandzukic, who I don't even know where he is now. But you can kind of see what that player is, right? A big more physical, direct target man. And then obviously we brought in Igalo in January, but that was a little bit of a we just need somebody to make up the numbers situation, because we missed out on Holland, who obviously fits that profile as like a prodigy level. But I don't really get people that are upset and say this shows like desperation. I don't actually think the Cavani thing is desperate at all. I actually think it's somewhat shrewd on the part of the club. They waited until the end when all of his options really had dwindled down. By all reports, his wage demands came down significantly from what they were at the start of the window. And, they waited to see what was out there. Apparently Jovic was another option they were looking at on loan from Madrid, but he stayed. So I think that they then went with Cavani, and they got a pretty good deal on him. I think they got a favorable contract too, right? It's 1 year only that's guaranteed, and they have an option for another year. So, and yeah, he had his injury issues last year, but up until then, he's been very healthy, a consummate professional, productive. I think that was a really good signing, and I have no issue with it at all.
It will be interesting to see how he does. I mean, I guess he's obviously Garlo, I'm assuming, is going to leave now in January because we'd extended his loan until then, and I feel slightly sorry for him. I actually thought he could have played more while he was here. I thought he did a pretty decent job whenever he was called on, and his whole story of obviously just being ecstatic to play for the club. But anyway, it's not going to be like a world beater for us or anything, and Cavani's definitely going to be an upgrade on him, even if he is 2 years older. And the slight issues with Cavani are that he's not played at all since March. As you say, there is a few kind of injury doubts, but generally he's not had that many injuries in his career. He's fell out of favour at PSG, right? He had kind of like a falling out with Neymar, and has barely played since then. And his whole last season was a write-off for him. He was kind of just waiting to write off his contract. That is the slight weird thing that, he has been available basically on pre-contract since January, and nobody has agreed anything with him until the last week of this window. But I think, it could be what you're saying, Ashwin, that I think his agent and him were probably demanding a lot, when players end up in that out of contract position. Even though you pay no transfer fee, you end up paying pretty hefty agent fees and big signing on fees and salaries, and the package often isn't as cheap as some people might think. And I think I've seen quotes of talking about maybe £10 million that we've ended up paying in kind of agent fees, signing on fees and all on. That's before we even get into his wages.
We should be acutely aware of this based on the Sanchez transfer, right? Because, I know that technically it wasn't a free transfer, but it essentially amounted to swapping players and then giving him, God knows how much money and a signing on fee and his agent fees and all that stuff. I don't know. I think it's okay. I think for me, just looking at the whole window, I have no problem with the club deciding these are our valuations of etc. of these things, and we're going to stick to them. That's fine. But the problem is you have if your evaluation of Sancho is he's worth 80 million, 90 million, and that's all we're going to go, and Dortmund are telling you we're not going to sell him to you for less than 120 million, then you should just move on. There was no why would you wait until the very end of the window just to be humiliated even more by the fact that Dortmund never budged on it? and then you have to scramble around on deadline day, and then you get the only wingers you bring in are two 18-year-olds. One who isn't even joining until January.
I think that is the biggest issue, isn't it, that everybody has with our business? It's just how late it is. If we'd bought in these players earlier on in the window, then it kind of more looks like, look, this is a plan. This is what we've been aiming for. Whereas when you do business right at the end of the window, you're already 3 matches into the season. It just seems like, like you say, scrambling around for whatever's left in the kind of bargain bin. And yeah, that's probably a bit unfair on somebody like Cavani, who's obviously a massive high-profile player. And in fact, I'm sure the club's PR team are now doing their best to show him in the light there. And I've just seen the stat go out that actually surprised me that said that Cavani, since he came to Europe in 2007, scored more goals than anybody except for Messi and Ronaldo. And, the rest of that top 5 is actually Aguero and Zlatan. So he is like literally up there in the last kind of decade or so as one of the elite strikers in Europe.
And he does a lot of the defense. Like he's not just, he's not a passenger when you're out of possession either. He's always been a bit of a workhorse in terms of pressing and all those kind of things. So
well, and as well, it's a player that a lot of people think that, look, there's no way we're interested in this player. But kind of when I was just doing a bit of research, I dug out as well that when we played PSG last year, before that match in his pre-match conference, Ole was actually talking about the PSG team, and he had this quote about Cavani. He was talking about him before that game. He was talking about how great PSG's team was. In Mbappe, Neymar was not playing at that time, and he was talking up the rest of them. And he said, Cavani is like a Viking, like the ones you see in movies. He's a real warrior. So, from afar, it's a player that I guess he's been admiring for a while. That's February 2019 that match was. Imran, are you happy to see Cavani over here?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get a bit.
I remember, Imran. I remember you once had an epic rant about Falcao. This is a lot of people are talking about. Look, is he the next? That's the thing, though. We've had players like this, and I hope that the club were moving away from this kind of Galactico signing thing. We had Falcao, Schweinsteiger, Di Maria's, big name players, quite a few who were past their prime. But then, more recently we had Zlatan, who had an outstanding season for us. So it can go either way, and we hope that he's going to come in and be more Zlatan than Falcao. But
basically, yeah, I do have my Falcao flashbacks. It's hard to get over. God, he was bad. He was really bad.
He had torn his ACL, right?
Yeah, he had a serious injury before he came to us, which affected him. And Cavani, while being injured, hasn't had that sort of serious injury.
There also might be some bullshit with his injuries, considering that they didn't want to play him last year.
Yeah, I think it's a good. I think for the reason Ashwin said, it makes sense that he got him late because then his demands came down on wages. I think that all makes sense. I think we do need a backup striker to Martial because it's obvious Ole doesn't really trust Ighalo as that guy when you are needing a goal in knockout phases of the Europa League and you're not bringing Ighalo on until there's 2 minutes to go. Then it's obvious you're not really trusting him. So. But yeah, we did need someone to be that backup to Martial.
It definitely improves our options, and Martial's actually going to be out for 3 matches now. It's absolutely ridiculous from that pathetic red card. But anyway, 3 matches without him. It will be interesting to see, if Cavani comes straight in the team, even though he's not played since March, or whether Ighalo is still given some game time, or even can Greenwood play up front, Juan Mata plays. We have different options, I guess. So, let's see whether he comes straight in or not. There has been a bit of people moaning about him being given the number 7 shirt,
I don't care.
Which I personally am not bothered about at all. I mean, seeing as we've given this shirt to the likes of Memphis Depay, Di Maria,
Michael Owen.
It's a number on a shirt. Who cares?
Yeah, I'm not that. But the only thing, though, of course, is that everybody was thinking that this 7 shirt is reserved for Jadon Sancho. And I think that's why now everybody's so gutted because, one, it kind of just reminds you that he's not coming now. But it also suggests that he's not coming anytime soon. He's probably not coming in the winter window either. And next summer is a long time away to think about.
He could, and this is crazy, he could wear another number. I mean, it's mind-blowing, I know. He could have a different number on his shirt.
Isn't the Sancho... I mean, so it's actually kind of interesting. Imran, I think you mentioned in the WhatsApp group maybe a month or 2 ago that you actually were not comfortable necessarily spending that type of money on one player. And I think you had referenced the fact that a lot of those major transfers hadn't worked out for the teams that had signed them. Are you actually fine with the club just not paying that amount for Sancho?
I am fine with the idea that the club thought this is too much money. We don't want to spend it on a player. I am perfectly fine with that idea. If you think Sancho at 20 million euros is too much, fine. And the reason I say this is because if you look at them, like Dembele cost over 100 million, didn't work out. Pogba cost us near enough 100 million, didn't work out. Coutinho didn't work out. There's only really Neymar,
and you could say he hasn't really worked out, to be honest.
And I mean, well, yeah, exactly. Like he comes with his own bag of shit, as Neymar. So it's a lot to put on one person. And to be fair, honestly, if Sancho came, he probably would be better than all that because I think he's a good player as Sancho. But I'm totally fine with the clubs thinking this is too much money. No, but like you said, as soon as that is the case, we should then just move on and get someone else for Ollie. We have to, surely, there is a world where Ollie said, Sancho's my number one, this guy's my number two, this guy's my number three. Unless it was just, literally, we can only have Sancho for our right wing, which doesn't really make much sense to me because there is a world where you can buy a right winger for 20 million, 30 million, and he can help us in that department for the year.
Well, I think we do know that Dembele was number 2 on that list, right? I mean, it's
but again,
pretty clear.
Was he though? Because Barcelona were really shopping him out because they wanted Depay. So I don't know if that was that really only came in the last few weeks, and that seemed to be linked to this Depay thing. So I think that was more convenience, and it was a loan as well. So obviously, it's not something the club really were planning for.
You should be working on that throughout the summer, right? Even if he's your backup, you should be having dialogue with Barcelona over, negotiating a fee or a loan or anything. And it seemed more like we kept holding out that Dortmund's valuation would come down for whatever reason. And then within the last week or two, we realized it wasn't going to happen. So then we started working on Dembele, and it's too late because it's a complicated situation. They wanted a fee and we didn't want a fee. And there's all these things you have to work out. And so that's like, what if we talk to Dortmund, we realize, hey, you know what? We're not going to pay this fee. So then instead we just Liverpool signed Jota for 35, 40 million, was it?
Yeah.
I don't even think he's like some amazing player, but he's a good player. And he would have been, I would guess that if you could tell him, and I know that Liverpool is obviously at a better, level than we are right now, clearly, though the result of the weekend, maybe we're at the same level. But you could go to him and say, you're going to be our starting right winger. And I think that he would jump at that opportunity over, being backup for Salah, essentially. That's just my guess. Or at least you have, that's a reasonable pitch to make. It doesn't cost you a lot, and it gives you an experienced option at the wing. And he's not old either. He's 23. So that it's not like you're just plugging the gap for a year until you find somebody else. You're actually addressing it with a player who can fit into your plans, it helps you in the short term, but can also fit into your plans long term. So that is the type of planning that you would want to see from the club. The baseline of just, we're not going to budge on our valuations anymore, that's a good starting point, but that doesn't actually fix the problem, right? That's just that's just you saying, oh, well, we now understand that we can't just pay whatever the hell people ask for. Okay, that's great, but you do have to pay for somebody to come in and fill that gap. And if we did the same exact window, but you buy Jota and then you add the 2 younger wingers, I think people would feel a lot differently about how the club managed the summer window. Then you could be like, okay, look, we didn't get Sancho, but we brought in another option, and then we brought in 2 young talents who we can develop into our own Sancho, right? That's a reasonable expectation and a way to go about it. Instead, what you have is you bring in 2 young talents, and then those 2 and Dan James and Greenwood, who are all the combined age of 7 years old, they have to, figure out the right wing spot on their own. That's bullshit. That's terrible planning, and it's just it's such incompetence and such a lack of creativity and thinking in the window that bothers me so much about how the club operates.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, I actually wanted to kind of talk about Sancho later. I wanted to talk about the players who'd come in, but I think we can't get away from it, right? I mean, everybody's still got him on their mind. Everybody was still fixated on him for the whole window. Like I say, I don't get emotionally attached in the transfer window anymore. I had too many disappointments years ago, whether it was like Schneider, whether it was like Ronaldinho, whoever. So nowadays, I just say, listen, as far as I'm concerned, none of these players are coming. When the club actually announces somebody, I'll start thinking about them and where they might fit in and things like that. Otherwise, I just don't get emotionally involved in it.
Or if BBC reports it.
Yeah, exactly. For me, until it's written on BBC, it's all just gossip and nonsense because they're the only ones who wait till actual things are solid. Whereas I know other people, even in our own collective, Jamie gets very involved in. He said he was pretty depressed and upset and was rebasing his whole expectations for the season now. And yeah, I think a lot of fans are like that, and they've seen a lot of negativity and people saying, "Oh, the season's a write-off now." But yeah, look, I think that's definitely harsh. Look, we've still got a good squad and we've definitely improved it. But yeah, let's talk about these two young players who've come in because very little is known about them. They've come in randomly again. And again, that's the slightly weird thing that they come on deadline day. If these players are signed earlier, then you kind of think it's part of a plan. Whereas when they turn up like with just hours left, you think, well, they're just like, we're just scrambling around for anything now. But I do think if you look into it, that maybe that is unfair as well. Like, the first one was this Facundo Palestri, who's coming in from Uruguay, Penarol over there. About 10 million quid, apparently. He's 18 years old. It's not that clear actually exactly what his position is. He's not purely a winger. I think he is more of like kind of from everything I've read and the reports I've seen, he's more of just a general kind of attacking midfielder. But there is stories going back to July actually, and in fact I saw Andy Mitten had written something about Ole speaking, specifically Diego Forlan, back in July about this player. So he'd already been reporting this like 2 months ago, 3 months ago even.
Yeah, Mitten had a piece in the Athletic entirely about Palestri. So
exactly, and this is all the way back to July. So people who think that we've just started thinking about him a week or two ago, that's definitely not true. It's definitely a player who we've been looking at, and as I say, continuing that theme of like Ole using the kind of global United family to research players. We've talked about what are the links of each player who's come in, and Van der Beek obviously to Van der Sar. Now, talking to Diego Forlan, who was actually his manager at Penarol, although Forlan has actually now been sacked after a kind of not great start to his managerial career, but he was his manager there, and he's talked him up a lot. He's thought of as a talent. I know, Imran, you said you don't expect anything from these two players this season. I don't expect anything from Palestri, because I think if you come from South American League to come and adapt and play in the Premier League is very difficult. And in fact, if we even think back to the days where Diego Forlan did come to us straight from Uruguay and he struggled massively to adapt to it and come into the team, whereas he did later go on to show that he was a world-class player, but it didn't happen for Manchester United. So making those moves to come from a league like Uruguay, it's not even Brazil or Argentina, to come straight to Manchester United is difficult. That's why you normally see South American players go to Spain, where at least they're comfortable with the language and things like that. So I do not expect that much from Palestri, and anything will be a bonus. But the other guy, Ahmad Traore, I actually do think that this guy could be a player and might be a player that we will actually see in our first team this year. There's a lot of kind of what you talk about, the internet statistic nerds who are like raving about him. I've seen more than one like report from the stat kind of rooms talking about that he's one of the hyped kind of youngsters around. The club say they've been looking at him since he was 15. That kind of is interesting.
We were actually rumored to be scouting him. Like this was last summer. I think I saw a report yesterday. I saw somebody put it out, but I don't think this is just them. I mean, it is a bit of a scramble at the end of the window, but I don't think it's a player that they did not do the background work on and have an understanding of. So I do believe that element of it. And I think yesterday I saw was it DiMarzio was on Sky, and they asked him about Traore, and he said that that he had actually played against Manchester City and last year in some, I don't know, whatever tournament, and he had scored a goal and an assist, and United scouts were there. So it's obvious. He's seen as kind of one of the top talents in Europe. So it's not a big reach to assume that not just United but a lot of big clubs would have been following him.
No, I imagine we were in for him, because I mean, in terms of like recruiting at the younger level, we've done it quite like a lot, and we've been in quite a lot of players, brought a lot of players in from around the continent and stuff. So I've no doubt that we're in for both of them, really. I don't really like Nick. I'm not entirely sure why it had to be on deadline day. I don't know why you can't.
Yeah.
We couldn't have these players earlier.
Well, I actually think Traore, I don't think we would have bought him in if we'd bought Sancho or Dembele.
Yeah, that is one way to, like, the funds, quote unquote, funds for Sancho have now gone to buy these. But in which case, I would question that as completely as why, like, Sancho is someone for the here and now. And then if you think these players are really good for the future, then you should be buying them anyway.
Well, as I said, I think that maybe Traore is for the here and now.
Well, he's only played 3 games. Professional games.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a similar situation.
30 minutes worth of games. Like, that's not a lot.
Well, you know what? It's not a dissimilar situation to when Martial came in. He'd played about 10 matches for Monaco. We paid a ridiculous amount of money for him. And again, I'm pretty sure it was deadline day.
It was.
That he came in and everybody was like, who on earth is this guy? And what, we're talking about 40 million quid or something. And, he's turned out to be like a top talent and is now showing what he was worth.
That's a little bit ingenuous.
Yeah, look, I know I'm reaching. I know I'm reaching here, but
he played about 50 times for Monaco.
No, it wasn't. It was like literally like 10 or 20 times.
No, it was. It was. He literally had like a full season in Liga for Monaco.
I'm surprised that all the the Atalanta fans on the CAF haven't dropped extensive scouting reports on Traore.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say, like, Martial did it and Ronaldo, but these are players who have played literally like whole seasons.
No, Ronaldo was different. Ronaldo was like a bit more known. He had been playing like, for his team already.
So had Martial. Same. Exactly the same.
He had not played that many matches, Martial.
He had played about 50.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you're right. It's a lot more than this guy. Yeah,
and he had already done Arsenal in the Champions League.
I know, and he had scored something like 10 goals or something. So yeah, he was a much more known quantity. You're right, and he was not paid anywhere near. I mean, I think they're talking about the fee up front is something like about 18 million. It was about 20 million euro up front, and I think the rest depends on how he develops. So yeah, we're not talking about Martial levels. In fact, it's probably about the similar amount of money we paid for Ronaldo like years and years ago.
It's like 20 million. I mean, it's 20 million euros plus another 20 million euros. But really, you'd assume that that add-on of 20 million will be based on him actually becoming like a first-team player for us.
It's probably more than that. It's probably like win a Ballon d'Or, because that's one of his favorite.
There'll be stuff like that, but there'll also be stuff like players like
appearances.
But I think we've got to remember about these young players is like Ronaldo's first season. He was so erratic. Like, you could tell there was something there, but because he's young, he's 18, he's an erratic footballer. That's kind of what you get. So when you have players like who are young, you kind of want to bed them in like you don't want to be heavily reliant on them.
Right.
Like with Dan James last year, ideally the idea would have been like we're not overly relying on him, and he comes in and does bits here and there and just adds to the squad. And instead he started like a house on fire. We kind of needed him, and then he went off a cliff, and then we were like, now what have we got? Luckily Greenwood came in then and we were fine, but when you're talking about players that young, you really, they don't want to be your focus, if you will. They want to complement the rest of your squad and the rest of your team, which hopefully you will do. But I just don't see it. I think it's impossible to know. He's played 3 games in his life.
Oh yeah, totally. But I just said, like, I have zero expectation on Pellistri. I do actually have a bit of expectation and a bit of excitement on Traore, but that's literally based on my research of watching the usual few YouTube videos and reading a few reports.
But what I would say to that is, if he literally didn't play a game this season, would you be upset?
No, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, I'm not expecting like Pellistri to play at all. I do expect to see Traore at some point, whether it's in the League Cup, whether it's in some low down Champions League game. Although we haven't really got any, seeing as we ended up in the group of death or whatever. But yeah, look, he's not coming anyway till January. because he's still got work permits to sort out and that kind of thing. He's from the Ivory Coast, so yeah, he's not European. So there's all that kind of home office stuff to deal with. So yeah, we'll see when he comes over there what kind of shape we're in at that time. But yeah, I do agree with you, Imran, because especially with youngsters, like you just never really know, and especially ones who are coming in from other countries, how they settle. And in fact, the same goes even for big players. You know, I talked about Diego Forlan, but there's a whole list of big signings we came. Even somebody like Juan Sebastian Veron, who come with like the biggest like price tags, the biggest reputations, and they still don't settle and still don't work out. So the expectations for young players is obviously even less. And in fact, our record of how many of these kind of youth teenage signings end up in our first team is pretty low. I mean, you're talking about somebody like Raphael, Pogba, the odd other ones. There's the odd ones who turned up and had their moment of like Makeda, Janusai, but there isn't that many who've really come in and been like solid players for years and years. So yeah, like you are right that we can't expect too much from these kind of players, and we just have to see how they come in and settle from there. So the one other player we've not mentioned is Alex Telles. I'm pretty sure, like I said, that left back was a priority position for Ole, because we were obviously linked quite heavily as well with Reguilon. And I think when we did a pod about a month ago, we all thought we were at that point we were getting Sancho and Reguilon. They were the kind of two. But yeah, he's ended up at Spurs. It seems to be it was to do with the fact that Madrid still wanted to keep quite a lot of control over that player and have rights to be bringing him back in, and we weren't happy with that. And again, I'm kind of okay with that, because I don't think that we should be seen as some kind of like feeder club for Real Madrid, whereas for Tottenham, they if they have him for a couple of years and he goes to Madrid for higher fee, I'm sure they'll be pretty happy with that.
I think it's also just like, I mean, ultimately, I think it comes back down to the fact that there was a budget. Because even with Reguilon, there was all this stuff about how the not having the buyback clause was part of it, but also that we were trying to negotiate the fee down from 25 million to whatever 20, and and that's also what happened with Telles, right? We were negotiating that down from whatever 20 to, I think we ended up paying exactly what we ended up selling Smalling for, 15 million euro upfront, and then 2 million in bonuses. So like it's just, I don't know. The Reguilon one probably was some combination of we want a left back and Madrid offering him to us, because Madrid had also tried to kind of create a bidding war earlier with Chelsea as well. So I'm not sure that there was much of a market for him, and that might have been also Madrid just trying to drum up interest around Europe for him.
I think just on Telles, I think he looks like he'll contribute quite well. He's a different fullback to the kind we have. We have two defensive fullbacks, you could say, in Luke Shaw and Bissaka, whereas Telles is seemingly just about goals and assists. Well, most of his goals come from penalties and free kicks, which apparently he's very good at, and apparently he takes a mean corner. So, but if you can put some balls on Cavani's head, then great stuff. It's a pretty good deal, really. It's exactly the same amount of money that we sold Smalling for, so balance the books. And yeah, he's like 27 years old, so you can get a good 4 or 5 years out of him.
Yeah, it does seem to be kind of, like I say, in his apparently prime age.
To be honest with you, these are the kind of deals that I quite like seeing us do. Not inexpensive, experienced, like good player from Europe. And the good thing about it is, like, if Telles doesn't work, right? If he doesn't work in a year, is it that big a deal? Not really. We spent like 13 million.
Well, the problem is we'll probably give him a 5-year contract at 100 grand, and then nobody will take him for the next 5 years. So yeah, that's what we see with the likes of Rojo and whatever. But yeah, no, but I know what you mean. It's relatively cheap deal because he was coming to the end of his contract. There is question marks over whether, do you think he's seen to come straight into the team, or is he just backup for Luke Shaw?
I mean, there's so many games this season, and they're all coming thick and fast that I don't think there's even such a thing as like a quote unquote starting 11 or takes this place, takes that place. Like, there's just going to be so many games to go around. I think everyone's going to get games. So really, I think it's just him and Shaw will get about as many games as each other. Maybe Telles will get more, maybe Shaw will get more, depends on the form. And on the other side, Wan-Bissaka and Williams will probably do the same. Like, there's a ton of games. So I don't really see it as either or kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do think the thing that he will bring, like you said, is much more attacking play from that side. I think Imran, we had a bit of like discussion on WhatsApp, and we were comparing the attacking stats of Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, and in the end, they're basically both pretty awful. Yeah, like Pick coming up with like 3 or 4 assists and maybe 1 goal a season or something like that. So you're like comparing like quite low down in the barrel, whereas his stats in terms of goals, assists are really high in the Portuguese league, of course. Question marks over how come he's coming at this age into a big league. But yeah, if you look at his history, he came in from Brazil to Galatasaray, did pretty well. Then he actually ended up playing in Serie A for Inter Milan. He had a year there, but I guess it didn't go that well because he ended up signing then for Porto, where he's been for the last 4 seasons. And, he scored 21 goals in that time. But as you say, he does take set pieces. But I have seen him score some proper net busters as well. Having a look at the kind of over he plays, so it's not just the kind of goal is the exact kind of shots that Rojo takes, but they actually go in now and again.
His assist record is good though too, which is I think more relevant than the goals, because if he's taking set pieces, obviously that inflates that. But if he's getting assists from open play, which he was, that's obviously something we need from that fullback position on at least one flank. So I think it's good. I also think that I actually thought Shaw played really well last season, but it also required kind of Ole to fake that Williams was totally going to challenge for his spot, and then all of a sudden, you saw Shaw kick it into some other gear. And I wonder if, obviously Tellez himself will provide an option that we need, but I think there might also be a benefit just in the sense that maybe Shaw will see that competition and, maybe raise his game a little bit more also.
Yeah, no, and it was interesting seeing Shaw himself asking for new players. I wasn't sure if he realised the one who was coming in was going to be challenging for his place, but I think he definitely is one that needs a kick up the backside. I mean, I think he in particular was pretty bad against Spurs, out of position time and time again. So for sure, like he needs to be having a challenge for his place over there. And then, yeah, one we've talked about before as well, plenty, because he's been around for month or so already, is Van der Beek, and I think we were all very happy with that signing. That's definitely the most important and highest quality signing off our window.
I think, I mean, we don't really need to touch on Van der Beek. He's, we all know about it. So I think if you looked at these players, like if you give me a list, like, I don't know, 2 months ago, and said, here's what will have happened by the end of the window. Don't give me any dates or anything, just say this is what we'll have signed. I'd be like, that's all right. Like, it's fine. We've not really addressed the 2 big areas of the team. Like I said, for me personally, and you, Nick, centre back is just I can't fathom the idea that either Ole or Woodward or whoever can look at our centre backs and think, yep, that's all good. That's excellent shape. And obviously, right winger, we've needed a right winger for years and years. So, but I mean, you look at these players and you think, I can sort of see the ideas behind them. Fine. I just think it's the manner in which it's all done last minute. All seem to come together a bit like scattergun. This whole Sancho thing where we think we can outsmart Dortmund, even though they say no, we're literally not gonna. This is what we want, and we're thinking, but we'll get you, and then we don't, and then just a bit, leaves you a bit underwhelmed by the end of it. But I think if you looked objectively, you think that's an all right group of players we brought in.
Yeah, look, they definitely improved the squad. I mean, my big takeaway kind of last season was that our first 11 is pretty decent. We need some much better backup options. And, obviously you're always hoping to improve that first 11 as Sancho would have done. We can definitely improve our first 11 at centre back if it's somebody like Upamecano in the next window or 2. But yeah, that I think we've definitely improved our bench for sure. You now have some kind of you feel happy of who could come in if there's an injury or 2. And as I say, going into a season now, playing Champions League, we definitely needed to be improving the options there. Maybe our first 11 is not really any better than where we're at, and that is a kind of issue of us really pushing on. I mean, I'd kind of said that I felt our squad, after buying Van der Beek, that we were still good enough to be challenging for kind of top four, but it would still be a battle, and that we really needed to be bringing in somebody like Sancho or somebody who improved the first 11 to be pushing on towards anything further than that. So I think we're going to end up in that same battle basically for top four. I mean, the other thing we do have to kind of talk about, of course, is the club taking a lot of flack, but it is an extreme year, COVID year, and we should talk about things like the match day revenue for sure is going to have absolutely affected our finances, and I think more probably than any other club. I mean, our match day revenue is the highest in the Premier League.
So is our turnover. We make more than anyone else in the league as well.
Yeah, it's true. Our match day revenue is a smaller percentage of our turnover. I mean, second in the list is Arsenal, and their match day revenue is actually about 25% of their turnover, whereas ours is something more like about 15%. We're looking at around £100 million a year is our match day revenue. And I did a few quick numbers, and I think that we've probably already missed out on about 100 million quid that we normally would have had in. And that's, I'm basically taking in money that would have come in from season ticket renewals, plus how many matches have not happened so far at Old Trafford. And normally you work out it's about 4 million quid a match. So yeah, I think we're looking at somewhere between about 70 to 100 million quid is missing from our usual cash flow. And that's going to affect any club, and it's definitely going to affect our club, where we have a kind of business plan which is reliant on paying off debt. And we can do a whole show about the Glazers and how wrong it is that we're in debt, but the fact is we're in that position, and I kind of just become resigned to it over the years, and that's it. We are reliant on that. We're stock market listed company. Our business cash flows are totally different than places like Chelsea, City, even Everton, who are very, very wealthy owners who are pretty ready to splash the cash whenever they need to. And that's just the right way they are. I mean, we can't really be looking at anything and without taking this into account. And I, like you said, I don't think it's so ridiculous for the club to say that, look, we're not paying £100 million for Jadon Sancho, especially not in a kind of COVID era. I can kind of understand that. But yeah, again, we all say, but the problem is then move on and buy somebody else. I mean, do you think that's an acceptable excuse, Ashwin, on the kind of COVID money? I mean, a lot of people will say, but look, everybody else is buying. They've all got the same issues as well.
Is it a legitimate excuse? I guess, but it's also bullshit, because if you can suck money out of the club, then at times you should be willing to put money into the club when the club needs it. And I think they have pulled more than enough money out of the club. Like, if you can't buy Sancho, right, which is fine. I understand like the argument for not buying him. What was the plan for the win? So even if they got Sancho at their price, which was like 80 million plus some add-ons, so let's just say it's 80 million up front anyway. Like, were we just not going to do anything else in the window then? Was that it? Like, we were just going to do Sancho, sign Cavani on a free, and call it a day? Like, I just don't understand what the plan is. And I guess, like, if you are going to operate in this budget kind of scenario, then how are you letting Woodward continue to run the show? Because he's shown that he's incapable of doing it and handling the business of addressing needs of the first team. We still don't have a right winger. Who was the last one that we bought? The last right winger that we bought at the club was probably was it Nani, or was it Valencia? Was Valencia the last one?
Antonio Valencia, yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's a decade ago. That's over a decade ago. That's crazy. Like, we bought him in 2009. It's 2020. I cannot understand that at all. At least with center back and CDM, like, I think, to be honest, with central defensive mid, like, I think that falls on Ole, in my opinion, because he has talked up McTominay as kind of the heir to Matic. So, and they renewed his contract. They renewed Matic's contract. I assume that he probably was okayed both of those things. So I can understand if the club says, okay, but we're not getting you somebody for that position because you told us that these two were good enough for that position. We paid them new contracts for you. So I'm okay with that. The center back thing is, that's a mess of years in the making, with all the, players that we have there, the ridiculous contracts for Jones and Rojo. Fortunately, we were able to get a fee for Smalling, which is pretty decent. So at least the club did that, which was good. But I mean, there's just, for all the options we have, there's not enough quality, and it's just not good enough. And then, like, luckily we finally got in another left back this window, so that's good that we actually have two natural left footers in the squad. Amazing accomplishment. It's all just like, if you need to operate within these very strict parameters, then you need to get the best people to work within those parameters. And that's kind of my issue with all of this. Is I know that there's this, kind of growing upswell of people that want to sack Ole and all these things, but like, do you even have any faith that the club would actually find a manager who could work the best within those parameters, or would they just go for a manager? Like, I think 100% if they sack Ole, they'll just hire Poch because he is the biggest name out there and it'll make everybody happy, and that's about it. Like, I don't think there's much thought that goes into it.
Yeah, no, as soon as that transfer window closed, there was these kind of rumours started coming out, which I just think is that the newspapers now had nothing better to talk about because the window was closed. Like, I don't give much faith into any of these. But I'm sure that last season, the club was already thinking about who could be Ole's successor when he wasn't doing that well. But that to me, like, that is the only thing that makes me sad, is that Ole did, I think, a damn good job to get us into the Champions League. He did what he needed to do. He delivered. And then he's not been backed to move this team onto the next level. And we're just really going to be in the same situation of fighting for a kind of top four place. And realistically, we can't really expect much more than that with the squad he's got. I think hopefully, we can turn around this bad start of the season. We are only 3 matches in. But yeah, that is just the sad thing. If we just go back as well, and like I say, look at some of the stats. I mean, if we talk about the numbers and budgets and coronavirus, there is a bit of kind of statistics behind showing that transfer levels have been lower this season. I mean, it's the first season in many where there were less transfers done this summer than last summer. It's not a big difference. Last summer, we're talking about £1.4 billion were spent by Premier League teams. This season, it's 1.2. But it is the first time in a long, long time that it's gone down. And in fact, 1.2 is even less than it was in 2018. So yeah, there has definitely been a drop in transfer fees. Although the Premier League was still spending a lot more than other countries, it seems that other countries have had a much bigger impact. Like, the Spanish clubs have been quiet. There's not been that much going on in Germany. Italy are just taking whatever they can get on the bargain basement kind of levels.
This is why I don't buy COVID as an excuse.
I don't either.
Only because of what everyone else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you've got Arsenal spending more than us, when you've got Spurs who have that giant stadium and they can spend more than us and they're not restricted by this COVID, then I just don't buy. Especially for us, we have, like you said, our matchday revenue is such a small percentage of, not such a small, but it is a smaller percentage of our
that is definitely
overall turnover. And the Premier League earns more from TV money than anywhere else. Isn't that the deal? And then we all share it out, kind of thing, better than everyone else. So that's probably why the Premier League clubs have more money. You would I think it's more of a convenient excuse than an actual excuse. I think, because like if Sancho was available, like Ashwin said, and we bought him for 80 million, I still think we probably would have bought Telles, and we still would have bought Donny van de Beek, and probably bought Cavani too. So there you go. That's already more money that we spent. And to be honest with me, I'm not even bothered about the money. I'm really not. Like, if you could tell me, we'll buy 4 Alex Telleses, we go to Europe and buy 4 players we've scouted and researched for 18 to 20 million. Happy days. I'm happy with that. I'm not too bothered about spending a gajillion pounds. I'm just more bothered about the due diligence, the planning, the scouting, and more importantly, just getting it done. Like, it can't be good for the squad. It can't be good for Ole. It can't be good for anyone to have all this done on the last day.
And it's hanging over the squad too. Like, they know they're all aware of what's going on. Rashford is probably talking to Sancho all summer. Oh, can't wait to play with you. Can't wait. Like, this is not like they live in a vacuum and they're not aware of all the other surrounding noise. And I think it's like, it probably is genuinely depressing when you see Spurs sign 6 players while we have signed 1. And we finished ahead of them in the league. We have Champions League. We have more revenue than them. We're not paying, for a new stadium. Like, there's no excuse for that level of stinginess, I guess. And if there isn't, and if the reason is that you have been, your past mistakes are coming back to haunt you now because of a pandemic, well, guess what? Maybe you should hire new decision makers in those positions. Let Woodward focus on getting noodle sponsors. He's not fit to run the football side of things, and we've seen it time and time again. I think that he understands. Like, I do genuinely believe that he and the club have learned some painful lessons in the transfer window, but he still is not able to take that final step and improve the kind of operations of how we work in the window. And that is the frustrating part.
Yeah. And, we do this time and time again. And sometimes I just think in the back that because we're run by bankers and whatever, they just think that this is a cool way to do things and that they're clever. They're going to negotiate better than expired. And we ended up like having to pay more to bring him in because it was failed on all our other. And it always goes all the way back to that. And this is the problem. There's been a constant cycle all the way back to 2003 when Woodward has taken over. And there is this pattern now, where people have started pointing out that managers come in and they are backed pretty well. Moyes, all right, he had that write-off of a season and everybody said, all right, we'll learn from that. But then, Louis van Gaal spent 130 million quid in his first summer in.
Oh, my God.
But the year after, he only had 45 million quid and then he's sacked. Mourinho comes in, spent 125 million quid. He then actually is the only one who really shouldn't complain about being backed because the year after he spends another 100 million. But then he had that window where it was Fred, Gallo and Grant.
And he says Fred wasn't his signing.
Yeah, and he said he didn't even want Fred. So it was 50 million spent that summer, and he said he didn't even want that player. But like I say, he's one who shouldn't complain. He spent 200 and nearly 300 million quid over 3 seasons. So, a lot of people always say he wasn't backed and whatever, but I really think that it's like difficult to argue that.
He nukes our wage structure too. The Sanchez thing, he wanted Sanchez and we nuked that destroyed our wage structure for God knows how long. So he can't complain at all.
And that is the problem, right? We're still, like you say, paying for transfers that were done by under Van Gaal, done by under Jose, whether it's Rojo, whether it's Romero, whether new contracts given here and there to players that we still can't get rid of. But look, last year Solskjaer now spends 120, which is the similar-ish that both Van Gaal and Mourinho. There's a pattern there, 130, 120. Basically, every manager has been given around 120, 130 in their first year. And then there is a biggest drop-off often in that second year, apart from Mourinho, who was given another 100 million quid. This year we're looking at Solskjaer's having basically been given 35 kind of million net, which is pretty poor. All right, Cavani is a free transfer, and if you start adding in some of these others, it does get more to around 50 with these youngsters.
I checked it this morning. It's like 58 million euros, I think, net.
Yeah, and so that's if you include the Pellistrian.
Including them, it's like 58 million.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about 50 million quid basically.
And that doesn't include like the holy grail of taking Sanchez's wages off.
Yeah, which is that's like 15 million.
Actually gigantic, really.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, do you think this pattern points to the fact that the club are just happy to be in the Champions League and don't want to push on from that? I mean, or is it just coincidence? I mean, like I say, it's pretty difficult not to see that there is some kind of pattern there.
Even last year, you say 120. I don't think it's that because they sold they sold Lukaku almost right before they bought Maguire, or it was like right at the same time.
But I'm not only talking about the sum of that 120 includes Bruno.
Okay,
so it is 120 in his first season.
So even then, though, they let Herrera go, right? Because they did not want to pay the wages. Okay, so that's you're cutting off a ton of money off the wage bill there. They actually, I mean, you can laugh, but they actually got like 10 million for selling Fellaini, right, when Ole first came in. So I think that there has been, even if you include all these everything.
Yeah, but these are net figures, so it counts all of those things.
It's very clear to me that they are now focused on fixing their mistakes that they have made in the past, and that is coming at the expense of Ole and the fact that he just does not have. He has to work within a much tighter budget than I think Mourinho ever had to, or Van Gaal ever had to. I don't even know if they had a budget, really. I mean, I think that they had some budget, but it was a lot more lenient. And I think that there were times where If Mourinho cried enough, he got more out of Woodward to spend. So I think in general that there's like maybe COVID is part of it. I think that's kind of just a nice convenient excuse, but I think that the club is definitely has tightened the purse strings a bit, and I would venture to guess. I was thinking about this last night, but I would venture to guess that the club will be pretty motivated to sell somebody like Pogba next summer. As I doubt he signs an extension now. So I think that they would be glad to sell Pogba and potentially De Gea if it comes to that too, because I think that would probably kind of help erase a lot of the, let's call them excess mistakes of the past. And I think Rojo expires, so your wage bill
So we'll
would clear
finally
up a lot.
be rid of him.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
We've still got time to offer him a contract.
But yeah, I that's what I fully expect to happen over the next couple of years. Or not next year. I imagine a lot of I think Pogba will definitely go, Rojo will be gone, and then you're just left with De Gea's gigantic salary and Phil Jones, who will have his testimonial hopefully by then.
I do think it's funny in a non-COVID world. I think we're sat here without Pogba.
Yep.
And probably with Sancho, and we'd probably be better off for it.
Why? Because you think nobody's been able to buy Pogba due to COVID restrictions? Is that what?
Fabrizio Romano, he said that Juve were going to bid 100 million euro for Pogba before COVID.
And not only that, but he was set on leaving. He wouldn't have been able to come back into the team because the season would have finished without him playing. He wouldn't have, and I think he would have just wanted to go then. But I think with the way COVID fell and then the season started again, and he obviously couldn't move then, and he was fit, so we played him, and he's back into the team. So I just think the way, and yeah, like you said, clubs around Europe having this money, I think just the way the dominoes have fallen, I think, has kept him here. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes sooner rather than later.
Wouldn't be surprised if it happens in January in a certain situation.
No, I don't think we'd sell someone so big in January.
I would be very surprised if Pogba leaves in January.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we can also bring in somebody who is a priority target. I don't know who that would be.
That is actually the weird thing, is that the next window opens in literally 2.5 months time, which, because, we've gone much later, and the next window, they've not changed the time of it. So it's the same window as usual, start of January and finishes first week of February. So it is literally only 2 months away, which is kind of a bizarre situation. So yeah, let's see if we've still got budget left and what happens at that window. The other thing as well is that, always every summer there is this whole Twitter outcry. It's been happening not even summer, every window. You see Glazers out trending, Woodward out trending, and I don't even disagree with that sentiment, but I just find it a bit strange that people only talk about this when the window's open, because I think it's something that maybe they should talk about all the time. But this summer, we've seen a lot more kind of high-profile people talking about it. Twitter is full of absolute nonsense. But yeah, Evra has obviously been having a go, and I'm sure you will have seen his couple of kind of interviews recently, although sometimes you're not sure what exactly he's getting at, and he goes on random rambles, but you can pick out that he's definitely not happy. And he had a big go at Woodward and Matt Judge in particular on one of his rants last week, although I did find it interesting that he kind of went out of his way to almost protect Joel Glazer, that I was surprised by, to be honest. Rio as well has been, again, recently just talked about how when he left the club and he wasn't happy at all at how he was treated by Woodward. I don't know if you've both seen that video, where he basically says that, I was expecting to be given a new contract and then was just literally told on the last day of the season that, go and find yourself a new club. And even I only found out yesterday myself that George Galloway is a big United fan and has been laying into the board. I found this most amusing. Did you see all that, Imran?
I did.
And now, Ashwin, you said, who on earth is George Galloway? And then I said, look, he's a big UK politician and actually has been out in your US Senate a couple of times raising hell about Iraq and such things. But I've seen him going overboard on talking about the board and all this year as well. So it is actually interesting now to see this kind of pressure coming from all sides.
Well, they don't talk, they don't communicate. I think after a transfer window, I mostly don't care that whoever, Woodward or whoever would be in that position, if they don't talk, it doesn't really matter to me that much. But I do think that after a transfer window is closed, you should have to, not necessarily explain yourself, but answer some questions, appear in front of the media, do something. I think it's just so absurd, the burden that falls on Ole in this situation.
That is the shame, because you see him and then you can see that he's not happy, but he doesn't want to say it. And I actually am happy that he doesn't say it. I've seen some fans giving him flack, saying, "Oh, he's a puppet. He should speak out." And I don't agree with that at all, because we've seen.
They're probably the same people crying that Mourinho was constantly moaning about it.
You should see the atmosphere that Mourinho came and broke the club and toxic, and that's what happens if you end up doing that. And you can see that Ole is not happy, but he's trying to still keep a brave face on it. And I do actually think that is the right thing to do. And I do not want him to be coming out with anything and saying that, I'm not happy with this and I've not had this. And...
I mean, did you see PSG this week? Who's PSG manager? Tuchel.
Yeah.
Tuchel, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came out and said something about not signing players or not switching in the window. So Leonardo, the director of PSG, just said, "Well, if you don't like it, you can leave."
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, fair enough.
That is it, isn't it? Like, these people employ Ollie at the end of the day. Like, he's not going to just go out and slag them off as much as you might want him to. It's completely unrealistic to want him to do such a thing.
It's also the equivalent of saying the players you have are right? That's essentially what you're saying. So I never understand why anyone would want the manager to do that. Is there some way he could tactfully do it without? I think he has, right?
He has as well. I think he has. Yeah, he's never shied away from saying that he wants players. Like, he's always alluded to it.
Yeah, he always says, we're always looking at improving the squad. We want to bring in quality. It has to be the right player. He says the same thing. Like, he was pretty clear after we beat Leicester on the last day, and after we lost to Sevilla or in the Europa League, he was very clear that we need to add quality to the squad. I've communicated what I want. This idea that he's just smiling around and just happy to be there, it's just stupid. It's really disrespectful to him to act like he's this guy who's just he's happy to just be there and he's just taking a paycheck and he's just trying to be a good soldier, and that's it. It's so wrong, and it actually devalues even the work he has done. He's gotten players, he's done more to get players out of the club that shouldn't be here than any of the other managers. He's made harder decisions than Jose or LVG ever did, right? Jose was happy to just sit there with a bloated squad and that was fine. He didn't do any he was fine. He's the reason Rojo got a new contract.
Yeah, we had the highest wage bill in the world under Jose. Now it's come down a bit. Yeah. Which is pretty ridiculous. I totally agree with you. I still think Ole is not getting enough credit from a lot of our fan base. But I have been happy to see there's been a couple of kind of polls, and I saw one where there's a few thousand votes in it, and there was still a good 70% of people were saying, look, we back Ole. And to be fair, most of the flack from most quarters is going towards the board and the Glazers, which is the right thing. No, but there is still this kind of minority that are hard Ole out, and I don't understand that, to be honest. I think he did so well to get us into the Champions League, and I don't say that he's going to be our manager for decades and bring back the league or anything like that, but I think that he deserves some respect for the job he's done, and it's just a shame that he hasn't been fully backed.
It would be absurd to sack him 3 matches into the season. I don't care how bad we've looked in those 3 matches. It would be such a joke for him to have done what he did last year and deal with so much stuff, to just sack him after 3 poor matches without really giving him a chance to, he's made errors for sure in these first 3 matches. I'm not good. It's not like I'm absolving him of that. I think that there's definitely work to be done in terms of how we build up our play and defensively. There's obviously a lot of work that he needs to do and improve upon, but he should have the chance to do that at least. He should have that opportunity. To not give him that opportunity, it's again almost you're giving the board and Woodward and the Glazers such a pass to do that.
Yeah, and that's it. I don't want to get into that same cycle of sack a manager again after 2-3 seasons, start from scratch. He has to get rid of players he's not happy with, bring in new players, and it's just a constant boring cycle. And I thought this was going to be the time that finally there was a good feeling, everything was good, we could move on from it, progress. And look, this window is not as terrible as some people are making out, but it's also not massive progress in the kind of first team, that's for sure.
I think Woody's probably very fortunate there isn't fans in the stadium.
Oh yeah,
I think a lot of I would be doing. I mean, that could possibly tinfoil hat time play into maybe our lack of Sancho or whatever, is that there is no crowd to really get on his back. But I think if there was a live crowd in Old Trafford, the eye would be definitely towards the board and him, and not Ole at all, I don't think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Old Trafford, I know for sure, would be behind Ole. Sometimes online you get a different feeling. But I said even there, I've seen a couple of votes this week, and it was like the one I saw that had the most votes in it were 70% still backing Ole, which I was glad to see.
I think Woodward as well doesn't help himself with, because like he does all these briefings, and then like you don't know what is his briefing, what isn't his briefing, and then like he has like his own PR guy. And then like earlier this week, you get him like, oh, Gary Neville said something bad about me. Like the thing is, even with that, even if that's not not something that's come from him, you can 100% believe that is something that has come from him because of things that have happened in the past. He seems like the man with the most fragile ego in the entire world, and it's stuff like that that just doesn't help his case.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, just to finish off, I did say a few weeks ago on the podcast that I'd want to wait until the end of the transfer window for us to give our kind of full season predictions. I think I've already said that I think we've improved the squad. We've definitely at least improved the bench, if not the first team. I don't think we've pushed on enough to be having any kind of challenge. We came third last year. I can't see us doing much better than that, and I think it'll even still be a battle again because of how other teams have improved. But I'm still quietly confident that we can finish top four. Where are you two at, Imran?
It's really difficult because this season is so different and crazy, and we've already seen how mental the Premier League is already, and there's no crowds, and there's probably not going to be crowds for the whole season. It's really hard to predict. Anything could happen, but I think we're going to struggle to get top four. And honestly, I actually think we might get Champions League through the Europa League.
By coming out of our group in third place, going to the Europa League and winning it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that well, I mean, our Champions League group's pretty difficult. We've got the Champions League finalist and semi-finalist in there.
It is difficult, but we should be beating Leipzig, right?
We should be, but I mean, it's difficult. Like they're certainly not a walkover. They've got a very good manager who one day I hope.
And let's not forget, we did beat PSG with not as good a team or squad as we should have at the moment.
Yes, but that was like
we rode our luck.
Well, we did. Like of course, it was a
great night, but not exactly. We could sneak in, but I would go a struggle for top four, and our best hope Champions League might be Europa League. That's my prediction.
All right, Ashwin.
This is tough. I think we'll finish fifth, and I think we will get into the knockout stages, but we will lose pretty early on, probably in the first tie, so round of 16, and then I think we'll win the League Cup though. So we got that to look forward to.
All right. Yeah, I think that's probably about a wrap from us. There was actually other stuff I wanted to talk about that we didn't get onto because there's so much stuff we can go into. Didn't really go deep talking about directors of football or lack thereof and this kind of thing. But yeah, I'm sure we can cover it on other shows in the future. I think at least, we've done our kind of rundown on what's gone on in this transfer window. Look, we've got a couple of weeks break now with this international break, which is quite an annoying time. Quite a few of our players will be away, and even players who need game time, like Maguire, Pogba, will be interesting to see how they do on international duty after not looking up to it at all so far this season. We'll try and do maybe a show just before we come back against Newcastle, but definitely after Newcastle if not. And please, as usual, do hit us up on Twitter, Facebook. We're always really poor at promoting our social media and everything, and do appreciate any of the likes, comments, retweets, all that kind of stuff. And if you're listening on Apple, please do go now immediately and give us a 5-star review. And you can do the same nowadays on Google Podcasts as well. Good night.
Cheers, guys.
That's all for me.